Welcome back to another video on building your own version of Airbnb here in Adalo. Now in this video we're going to get cracking straight into the database and really just get everything set up that we're going to need to map out our app. Now this is a little bit more complex because what we're actually trying to do here is support two different versions of a login at once. So we'll set up this database and then we'll dive into the sign up page as well and some of the changes that we need to make there. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a collection. I'm going to start with apartments, which of course is a big and obvious part of Airbnb. We need to list every apartment that's going to be listed on there for people to come and stay in. Now there is a really heavy amount of pieces of data, fields, variables that we're going to save in here. I've written a lot of them down from the last video, but bear in mind, as we build this app out, it might start to look slightly different just as I'm building it in real time. Whereas the previous one took me 2 days just to mess around with and figure out exactly how I was going to do it. So the first thing I'm going to start with is, well, I've got the apartment name there, and you can leave that in. You'll notice on Airbnb a lot of apartments just have a random name. But first thing I'm going to start with is the number of bedrooms. I'll call that no of bedrooms, and I've selected a number. I'm also going to have a no of bathrooms. And I can put various variables in here or fields in here to figure out what amenities the apartment has, or amenities, depends how you pronounce that. So I'm going to select a true false value, or a boolean, or boolean as we like to call them. And I'm going to call that has gym. So that's a question I'm asking, you know, well, does it have a gym? I could also say, does it have a hot tub, say, or a jacuzzi, as you might call them. And I'm also going to say, does it have a pool? Now you can put as many or as few amenities in there as you like. I'm going to stick with 3 because I think that's plenty. But you know, you could put anything in there. You could say, like, does it have parking? Does it have showering facilities? That's probably a stupid one. You'd kind of hope it had showering facilities, but you get the idea. Now I'm also going to add a relationship. And we're going to have a few in this one, but this one is going to be for hosts. So our user group is going to be split into 2. We're going to have users who we count as renters or guests. So those are the people who are coming on Airbnb and booking an apartment. And then we're going to have those who we consider a host. And so a host can have multiple apartments, but every apartment is only going to belong to one host. Now of course you can argue, well, what if I joint own it with my friend and all that kind of thing? You can build that kind of complexity into your app if you like, but I'm going to keep it a bit simpler and just say a user can have multiple apartments, but an apartment belongs to one user. So I'm going to call this my host relationship, and I'll show you in a second exactly how we differentiate that. So if I pop into users, I've already got this new relationship created here. That's by default. Now that I've created the host one there, it's automatically creating a relationship on the other side here in users. Now I'm going to change the name of that to give it a little bit more clarity. I'm going to call this owned apartments. So this will refer to the apartments that the host owns. Well, how do I know this person's a host? Quite simply, I come in here, add a true or false, and I say, well, is a host? Simple question. So we've now got a true false value. If they are a renter, if they're a guest, if they're just going to be booking an Airbnb, then we'll say they are not a host. So as a host will be false. However, if they are a host, if they are going to be uploading apartments and approving bookings, then we'll say true, they are a host. So that's how we differentiate there. But if we pop back into apartments, so a few other bits and pieces that we need to add here. Really obvious one. We're going to have to add the street address. And so that will be something like, you know, 64 Zoo Lane. And then we're going to add we'll add the city as well. So it could be London, it could be Barcelona, it could be Rome. We'll add the country, it could be UK, Italy, US, whatever you want to put in there. And we're also going to add a little numeric rating. So let me just do that there as well. And so that is just going to let us decide, you know, do guests like this flat or do they not like that flat? And we'll go into that when we build out the reviews section. One more thing I just want to add in here, which is what I like to call a main image. So this will be the main defining image of the apartment. We won't always use it, but it's handy just to have. Now, one thing to bear in mind, obviously I'm going to have multiple images. We'll cover that soon. I'm not going to add a database element for the multiple images just yet because it's a little bit of a workaround and I want to show you exactly how I do it. It's a little bit more complex than what I'm showing here. So we'll come back to that, but now we need to think about the other collections that we need, because we're going to need, for example, stays. Now, when I say stay, what I really mean is a booking. I like the word stay, but essentially I'm referring to if we have guests and we have an apartment, then what do we call the piece of information that says, well, this guest in particular is coming to this particular apartment on this particular date and are leaving on this other particular date? Well, I'm going to refer to that as a stay, but you could of course call it a booking or something similar. And the first thing that we're going to need in a stay is a beginning date. So when does this stay start? I'll call that a beginning date. You could call it a start date, but I've typed beginning now. And we're also going to have an end date as well. Type that in there, and those are the two main properties, but clearly we're going to have to start making some relationships with the other tables we've got in here. So let's first of all go and do users, and we've got a few different choices to make here. So a user can have multiple stays, but a stay belongs to one user. Well, that sounds correct to me, because one guest is going to, they can use Airbnb as much as they like. They could book a year of different travel, whatever. But at the same time, every single particular booking, every single particular stay is only going to belong to one user. Again, same as the apartments. You could argue, well, what if you're booking it with your friends, etc. I'll let you build that flexibility in using this relationship here, but we're going to stick with the top relationship, a user can have multiple stays, a stay belongs to one user. And we'll call this the guest. And similarly, if I pop up to users, I've got this other reciprocal relationship field created here. Now, you could keep that as stays. You could call it whatever you like. I'll just leave it as stays for now. But you could call it like my stays or, rented apartments or something like that. In terms of any other information we need in there are a few bits and pieces that you could add in. So first of all, we could count the number of days. So how long is that stay? Okay, we know the beginning date and the end date, but it would be easier just to also have a numeric. Okay, that's 5 days or 10 days. You should probably call that nights, to be fair, but days is a little bit simpler. And then we need a couple of Boolean statements, true and false statements. So we need to know. Bear in mind, we're doing a booking system here, in the sense that a user is going to make a booking request and then the host is going to say, yes, you can have that, or no, you can't, because it conflicts with another stay. So we need to do one that says, is it confirmed, as in, has the host approved it? So you could do it as approved or something like that. I'll call it as confirmed. So we're going to need that in there. And then similarly then, we're also going to need one called as declined. Now you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, surely if it's confirmed it's true, and if it's false then it's declined by default. That's not actually the case, because when we send a booking request, it is neither confirmed nor denied. It is a state in the middle. So therefore, by default we'll say it is not confirmed and it's not declined, in which case it will be a pending booking. And when the host comes in and confirms it, then brilliant, it will be confirmed set to true. Or if they decline it, it will be declined set to true, and then we can take an action later in the video based on whether it's confirmed or declined. Now sometimes, you might be thinking, oh, how am I thinking that far ahead? You're never going to get this. I am absolutely not thinking that far ahead. I've already spent 2 days building this to get it exactly right, and I realised halfway through the build process, oh, I need an is confirmed field and I need an is declined field. So don't worry if you're not thinking about this kind of thing up front. I'm not either. I just now know what I'm building, and so I get to show it to you as well as if I've already figured it out. So one last property worth sticking in here as well would just be the number of guests. You don't absolutely need this, but I'll let you specify, well, Have you got 5 guests coming along? Is it 2 of you, etc.? So we'll pop that in there as well. So we've got a relationship with the guest. Oh, and of course we need one other very obvious thing, a relationship with the apartment. Where is a stay actually going to take place? Now again, an apartment can have multiple stays because you might be staying there last week, I'm going to stay there next week, John Smith is staying there this week. So an apartment can have multiple stays, but a stay, of course, is only going to relate to one apartment because you can't book 2 apartments at once, really, can you? So we'll say this is the apartment, and if I double check, the reciprocal field should be used here, and yeah, we've got stays. So our database is starting to look pretty good. We've got the majority of things that we need here. I'm going to add one other collection. I'm going to call that reviews, and this is going to refer to essentially all the reviews that a guest is going to leave after they've stayed in a property. So a few fields to add here then. Clearly we're going to need the guest. So we'll hit users, and we'll say a user can have multiple reviews, but a review can only be written by one user. When they say bad things about their apartment, they have got to own that. So we'll say the guest. I'm just putting it as guest just to clarify it's not a host rather than leave it as user, but you could do that. Hit add property. And we're going to need the apartment, of course. Well, we need the stay. We don't necessarily need the apartment. So put the stay. A stay can have multiple reviews. A review belongs... No, so I think a stay can only have one review. A review can have multiple stays. So there's a little bit of an interesting thing here. What you really need for this is a one-to-one relationship. A stay can only have one review because you can only review it once, and similarly a review can only belong to one stay. Now Adalo technically doesn't allow that out of the box, but you can kind of build your own one-to-one relationship by picking either this or this. I'm going to go for the one in the middle, but you can pick either this or this, and then you can just enforce through your app that only one review is saved to one stay. It's entirely up to you how the logic flows through the app. So you can pick one or the other. You can treat it as a one-to-one relationship rather than a one-to-many, but we'll go for this one in the middle. And by the way, the options that Adalo will provide you change slightly depending on which one you provide, but it's not that big a deal, and I'll show you as we go through and build the reviews feature out exactly how it works. So we'll hit done. So we've got we'll call that a single stay, just to reinforce this as a one-to-one relationship. And in terms of the actual details of the review, then we're going to need a number. So we'll say, okay, well, here's the actual rating. And then we're going to do that out of 5, but Adalo doesn't let you specify within the database that it's out of 5. You can only just say, you can only just create a number field, but that's completely okay. Again, we'll control exactly what kind of rating the user can put in based on the app's own logic. And then one more, call this a rating comment. We'll call it maybe the review comment, sorry. Probably a better way to do it. So, you can add apartments in here. Technically, you don't need to because you can reach it through stay. What we'll do is we'll leave apartments out for now, and then as we go through our journey, if we need to come and put it back in, then we can do that. But I don't think we need it at the minute. And so just a couple of last things we need to clear up then. First of all, in here we've got name. Well, we're not going to name a review, so we're just going to give that an ID number, a unique ID. If you haven't heard the term unique ID before, it's just a unique combination of text and numbers that are almost randomized, that mean that we always can individually identify a specific stay without knowing, a specific stay, a specific review, without knowing the particular details of it. Again, I'm going to change that. A stay is not going to have a name. You wouldn't call this the John Smith stay or something like that. You're just going to give it a unique ID that says this is stay number 53672. And again, we have talked about unique IDs before. We've done that on our no code fundamentals video, so have a little look there if you're not sure what I'm talking about, specifically on the data types or the database videos there. So a couple more things just to add to users, just to finish us off here. So we've got as host, we've got our own departments, we've got our stays, we've got our reviews. So what else do we need here? Well, first of all, we need a profile picture. That's just not absolutely essential, but it's going to just let us kind of make our interface look a little bit better and a little bit more personal as we go through. And you can maybe even update this one here. You could call this booked stays, for example, just to be absolutely crystal clear on what that is. We've got reviews, and I'm going to add one last little mysterious field, and you're going to wonder why I'm doing it. I'm going to put something in here called temporary rating variable. Now I'm not going to explain what that is just yet. It's something we'll come back to in a future video, and it's part of a little workaround that we need to do to get something working. So just ignore it for now, and then when we come back later on, we'll look at how we can use that. But now that we've got our database up and running, we've got our stays, our reviews, our apartments, and our users, it's time to get cracking and actually build this app out. So by default, Adalo is going to give me a sign up, a login, and a home screen. And there's a couple more screens that I'm going to need. So this home screen is by default going to be for my guests or my renters. But I'm also going to need a screen for my host. So I'm going to have a host home. So if you're a host, you'll go to this screen, and it's just going to zoom me straight in there. I'm just going to zoom out over here, and I'm doing that by pinching my fingers on my trackpad, or similarly if you had a scroll wheel on your mouse. It's going to pop up here. I'm going to move it down just to give us a little bit of almost differentiation between the two tracks that a user can go down. And so if I go to my sign up page here now, clearly, as I say, this is created by default. And so if I look at the fields that I've got available, I'm going to add a visible field, and I'm going to add as a host ? Now there's this little bit here that says this field is required. If you're ever doing a checkbox, I highly recommend unticking it, because essentially what it means is the user cannot hit the sign up button unless, if this field is required, the user cannot hit the sign up button unless they actually tick it. So it's brilliant if you want to say like accept the terms and conditions, but it's crap if you want to give the user an actual real choice. So I'm going to have one here that says as a host. Other than that, everything is all good. I think I'm otherwise happy with that. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this screen out the way slightly. And I'm going to take this login button on this login page, and I'm just going to delete the link action. And again, if some of these actions are unfamiliar to you, definitely check out the basics of Adalo video that we've done, because it kind of talks through how all of these different things work. But I'm going to add another screen in here, and it is going to be called, really simply, upload profile photo. So we'll create that screen there, and put a couple of things on this, just really simply. Just not an image. We want to go down here to forms and fields. We want to do an image picker. So I can drag that in there. And I also want to bring in, nice and simple, a button, and this will say finalize profile, and so we'll drag that over there. We'll get rid of the, we could just put a big tick in here. I don't know if tick's an option. Let me just have a quick scroll down. I know there's one here, just to know what it's called. So we could use a nice little icon like this check, it's called. So we've got finalized profile, and I'm just going to drag that screen. You don't have to move the screens around, I just do it so it's kind of neat and tidy. I'm just going to move that in there. So what we've got here is we've got a sign up screen that's going to confirm if the user is a host or not. You could definitely make that its own screen, have a bunch of information that says if you want to upload flats apartments, and do that in the same way that I've created this extra profile photo screen here, and I'll show you exactly how you do that. So when we do sign up, now what we want to happen is we want to add another action that says link over to the upload profile photo. So I want to do that. Now already our sign up is done by default, so all these details will go in and create a new user. But we want to link to the upload profile photo. Similarly, with our login, we want to link to that. We don't want to link to the profile photo because we already got it, but we do want to link to home. But I'm going to add a slight variable here, which says link to home, and when does this happen? Well, this is only going to happen sometimes, and this will only happen if the logged in user is not a host. So if they are not a host, we will link them to this home screen over here. On the other hand, we will link the user to host home, so the host's homepage or home screen. We will sometimes do that, and we will do that only if the logged in user is a host, so if that's set to true. So we've just set up essentially an if statement there that says if the user is a host, then when they log in, send them to the home page. If they're not a host, if they are a host, then when they log in, send them to the host homepage. So it's just a really good way, immediately and early on of segmenting users and pushing them to the right part of the app. Now that they're in this host home part, they'll have absolutely no way of getting to the guest pages, and so that lets us create essentially two different apps within our one app. Now here in the host home, we do have this little bar up the top here, and it's got a little back icon that would take you back to the home page. We don't really want that functionality, so if I come in here, if I hit left icon, and if I toggle this little switch, that will switch that off. So once they're in the host home, they're in the host home. Now I can add, say, an icon on the right. I could do some sort, I don't know if I've got a log out, exit, something like that. Yep, so I could do a little log out button, and I could say, when the user does that, then log the user out. So now we've got our homepage for guests, we've got a homepage for hosts, and let's just tie up this last little upload profile part. So the sign up page is going to send us to profile photo, and then this button here is going to do a couple of things. Number one, it's going to update the logged in user, because remember on this screen the user has now signed up, so we know who they are. So it's going to take them, and it's going to take their profile photo, and we're going to go to form inputs and hit the image picker, which is this little part we put up here. And we could do a few things, by the way, in terms of styling. You could like edit that to be circular if you wanted, maybe make it a little bit smaller, so maybe do 200 by 200. Remember, little tip for design, not that I'm in any position to be giving tips out, but if you make the width and height of an image the same size and then set the rounding to the maximum available, you will get a perfect circle. So we do that, that lets us put the profile photo up, and then this little action is going to save that to the user's profile. No matter, it doesn't matter if they're a host or not, it will save it, they both need it. And then we'll do the exact same thing we just did on the login screen. So we'll link to home only if the user is not a host. So sometimes this action will happen if the logged in user as a host is set to false. So that will log them in there. And similarly, we will link them to the host home if, hit show advanced, if sometimes, if the logged in user is a host, they'll go there. And so there we go, nice and easy. We've just created a couple of links there. So the user will sign up, depending on whether they're a host or not. Once they've uploaded the profile photo, they'll either go to home or they will go to the host home as well. So this has given us the basis to now start building out our app in its entirety. The first thing that we're going to do is, add a new apartment via the host home. So we'll have the ability to kind of come in, add new apartments, and just start to add things into our Airbnb here. And then once we've sorted all that kind of side, and we've got some apartments uploaded, we'll then let the user or the guest or the renter navigate and begin to search, book, and all that kind of thing. So jump on to the next video and we'll get started on that.